This happened in the fall of 2021. I had just moved into a rented townhouse deep in southern Illinois. It was my first time living alone. I was 27, old enough, with a full-time job and a daily routine, but I still carried a heaviness. After a brutal breakup, I thought the quiet might offer peace. Instead, it brought something else entirely. The townhouse was one of several identical units, sterile, boxy, and pressed in a silent cul-de-sac just off a dark stretch of rural highway. Everything about it was too quiet, the sort of neighborhood where wind chimes sounded like alarms and the hedges never moved. Everyone kept to themselves, no one smiled, one man stood out, 3 doors down. Tall, broad, in his 40s maybe, greasy beard, eyes that didn't blink. I first saw him standing motionless in his driveway, one arm hanging limp, the other resting on the porch rail. At first, I thought he was just some restless night owl. But he was always there, every night watching. He never waved, never moved, just stared. I'd pull up from my shift around 9 or 10 p.m., and his eyes would already be waiting. He didn't pace, didn't smoke, didn't check his phone. He didn't exist. Until I looked at him. A shadow that only acknowledged you once you stared back. I tried to laugh it off. Friends and family said maybe he was just lonely, but it didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like I was prey. Then the noises began. It was mid-September. I'd just returned from another late shift, managing inventory at a distribution center, and passed out around midnight at exactly 2:37 a.m. I woke up to the sound of metal dragging across wood. Not a dream, a slow, deliberate creak, like rusted hinges forced open. My bedroom was at the rear of the unit. A glass sliding door led into a small fenced backyard. The blinds were closed. The sound came again, followed by soft, slow footsteps. Not leaves, not animals. My yard was gravel, lined. These were heavy, human, deliberate. I grabbed the dull kitchen knife I kept in my nightstand, and no gun, no dog, just cold sweat and panic. I crept to the blinds, lifted them slightly. Nothing. The motion light stayed off, but I felt it. Something was outside. I dialed 911. The dispatcher kept calm. Officers en route. I crouched in the corner of the room, barely breathing, heart pounding in my ears. 10 minutes passed, then flashing red and blue lights cut across the window. I opened the door, trembling. The officers walked around the house. The gate was shut. No prints, no damage. They said it was probably a raccoon. I nodded, but I knew. Raccoons don't wedge rocks under fences. The next morning, I checked the gate myself. That's when I found it, a flat stone carefully placed to hold the gate open. Quietly, strategically, I threw it across the yard and called the police again. They noted it in the report, but didn't care. Without a crime, there's nothing we can do. 2 nights later, I woke up again, this time to the soft rattle of my back door handle turning. At first, it was gentle, curious, then came a more aggressive jiggle. Like someone was testing its limits. I froze, knife in hand. The blinds moved slightly in a breeze that shouldn't have existed. I called 911 again. While I waited, I crouched in the hallway, staring toward the backyard. The motion light clicked on. For a second, everything was silent. Then I saw it, just barely, a shadow moving across the glass, a tall figure. Closer now, staring in. He didn't hide, he didn't flinch, just stood there like he belonged to the darkness. The same officers arrived. This time, they found footprints in the gravel, big ones, leading directly to my door. But again, no entry, no crime. They told me to lock everything up and left. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The next day, I bought a pair of Wi-Fi security cams, one above the front door, one above the back. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the feed, volume up, phone in hand. At 2:14 a.m., nothing, silence. At 2:23, movement. The back cam flickered. A man entered the yard like he'd done it 1,000 times. He moved just right, just slow enough to dodge the sensor until he was close. Hooded, gloved, he walked up to the door, looked straight at the camera, and smiled, not a twitch, not a nervous smirk. A wide, stretched grin, long and hollow. Then he backed away into the dark. I called the police again. This time, they watched the clip. One officer admitted it was disturbing, but again, no break-in, no crime. Their hands were tied. I asked them to question the neighbor, maybe get camera footage. They refused. Unless someone got hurt, they weren't allowed to investigate further. That night, I packed a bag and left. Slept at a cheap hotel with no windows facing ground level. When I came back the next afternoon to grab a few things, I found 4 muddy handprints on the glass door. Too high, too low. Like someone had crouched down, pressed their face against the window, and waited. I broke my lease the next morning, forfeited the deposit, didn't care, I was done. The final thing, the thing that cemented the nightmare, was the note I found as I was leaving, stuffed into my mailbox. Written in cramped, angry handwriting on ruled notebook paper. The cops leave. I don't. I filed one last report. The officer who took it looked genuinely spooked. Promised extra patrols. A neighborhood check. But it didn't matter. I was already gone. About a month later, I got a message on Facebook. A woman named Kayla. She just moved into the unit. I fled. Her message read, "Hey, sorry to bother you. Did you ever have someone in a black hoodie hanging around the backyard? I keep hearing footsteps at night. Last night someone knocked on the glass around 2 a.m. and just stood there. I didn't reply. I didn't want to know." I work for a property preservation company. We handle foreclosed homes, securing them, clearing them out, winterizing, and boarding them up when necessary. The job isn't glamorous, but it pays well. Most days are silent, lonely shifts inside places where lives used to happen. Sometimes it's melancholy, sometimes it's dull, but every so often a house feels wrong. This was in 2020. I'd been assigned to clear out a foreclosed home in rural upstate New York. The town felt abandoned. Just one gas station, shuttered storefronts, crumbling roads swallowed by weeds. The property sat off a dirt road, surrounded on 3 sides by dense, choking woods. No neighbors, just trees and silence. According to the file, the previous owner, an elderly woman, had died. No family stepped forward. The utilities had been off for over a year. My job, catalog the contents, clear them, and prep the house for winter. I pulled up with a box truck and my gear. From outside, it looked ordinary. The roof was intact, windows shut, door locked. But vines strangled the porch, weeds taller than my knees. I had to force the door open. It had swollen in its frame. Inside, it smelled of stale air and old age. Dust swirled in shafts of dim light. Then my work phone rang. It startled me. I had no signal out there. I'd checked earlier. No bars. Still the phone buzzed. No number. Just unknown caller. I answered. Static. A low, crackling hiss. I said hello. No reply. I hung up. Just interference, I thought. I began with photos. Standard procedure. Every room, every item. The living room looked like a time capsule. Faded lace curtains, heavy furniture, porcelain figures, framed paintings. Like a grandmother's house stuck in time, the hallway smelled strange. Not rot, but mildew, metal dust. There were 3 bedrooms. One was empty except for a stained mattress. Another looked like a sewing room, thread spools scattered, a dusty machine on a desk. I leaned in and saw a corkboard above it. It was covered in obituaries, dozens of yellowed clippings, cut with scissors, pinned carefully. No names I recognized, all local, all dead. Something about it made me uneasy. I moved on. In the master bedroom, I paused on the nightstand, and was a rotary phone, pale yellow, aged to off-white. The cord curled like a snake. It couldn't possibly work. The phone line had been cut. There was no dial tone, but there it sat, silent, like it had never stopped waiting. I headed toward the bathroom. My phone rang again. Same message. Unknown caller. This time I hesitated. I stepped back into the hallway and answered. Again, just static, but after a few seconds, a whisper slithered through the line. Soft, faint, almost drowned in the noise. Don't answer the phone in the bedroom. The line went dead. I froze. No sound. No wind, just the silence of a dead house. I checked the windows. Still shut. No sign of anyone. Maybe it was a prank, I told myself. Maybe someone from the crew was messing with me, but no one knew I was there. And still, no service. My phone flickered, one bar, then none. I tried calling my supervisor. The call failed. I decided to hurry up and get out. I boxed loose items from the living room. Books, figurines, old glassware. But I couldn't shake the feeling, that weight, like something unseen watching me from just around the corner. I kept glancing toward the hallway, expecting movement, dreading it. Then I heard it, a phone ringing. Not my phone, the rotary phone, that one. The mechanical ring cut through the house like a scream. It echoed shrill and impossible. That phone shouldn't work. The line had been dead for a year. No power. No signal, and yet, ring, ring. I stepped into the hallway, phone in hand, drawn like prey to the sound. Each ring was sharper, louder. I reached the bedroom door. The phone sat on the nightstand. Still ringing, the receiver trembled. I didn't answer. Eventually it stopped. I backed out slowly. I wanted to leave, but I hadn't checked the basement, and part of the job was to secure the house completely. I almost left, but something made me keep going. Pride, denial, stupidity. The basement door was in the kitchen. I opened it. Darkness gaped below. Each step creaked. My flashlight swept over cobwebs, rusted pipes, mold, dark walls. The air was damp with rot and iron. Shelves lined the walls. Old paint cans, broken furniture. In the back corner stood a small table. On it, a cordless phone, a newer model. Plastic, gray, caked in dust. And next to it, a stack of yellowed notebooks. I picked one up. Inside, neat handwriting filled every page. A name, a date, a line of text. Lena H. July 3rd, 2019 rang once. Didn't answer. Carl M. September 12th, 2019 picked up. Warned him. Dozens of entries, all like that. I dropped the notebook. My heart dropped with it. Someone had been tracking calls. Calls to this house, warning people. Watching them, the feeling hit me. Something was down there with me. I spun around. Shadows danced. Every corner felt occupied. I rushed up the stairs, stumbling, heart hammering in my chest. I didn't finish the job. I drove straight back to the office. I filed my report and left out the details. I wrote that the property was unsafe, possibly squatters or interference. They reassigned the job. 2 days later, I got a text from a guy named Mark, one of the crew. He'd gone to finish what I started. I hadn't told him much. His message read, "The phone in the bedroom with no service rang while I was in there." What the hell? I called him immediately. He answered and told me he hadn't picked it up. Said he was too freaked out. The next day, Mark quit. No notice, just gone. He's not dead. I looked him up on Facebook months later. He posted since, alive, but I never heard from him again. I don't know what else he saw in that house. but it scared him enough to walk away forever. My boss called the police, claiming possible squatters. They went out to investigate. They found no one inside, nothing, that house. Something about it felt wrong in a way I can't explain. The location, the decay, the phones, the whispers, that list in the basement, it wasn't just creepy, it was wrong. Like something ancient had rooted itself inside and didn't want to be disturbed. I don't know what happened there, but I know this. It wasn't a prank, and it wasn't just another job. It was a trap.